Hello and welcome to Arun in Denmark podcast, the podcast for foreigners living in Denmark. I'm Arun Prakash, your host, and I invite expats in Denmark to share their stories and learn what it is to live in Denmark. Whether you have just arrived or have been for a while, you will find something interesting in every episode. Let's get started. Hi, Parth. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi,
Uh,
Arun.
I would like to ask you to give us a short introduction about you.
Sure. My name is Parth Sharma. I am from India. I'm from Meerut, Uttar Pradesh, small town in north. And I came here to Denmark 2.5 years ago, close to 2.5 years,
Mm.
for my master's. So I did my master's from Industrial Engineering and Management at DTU, which is Technical University of Denmark. I graduated last year in August or September, and then I did an internship and my internship ended in March now, and it's been like 1 month. And right now, I'm actively looking for jobs and yes, entering into the job market and tasting the waters, and it's fun, it's adventurous, so I
Yeah.
like it. Yeah.
Thanks for the intro. First question to you: what made you choose to move to Denmark?
Hmm. So there were a couple of reasons. So I was looking actively for my masters, and there I had some options. I had Belgium, Germany, Sweden, and Denmark, then a couple of more. I don't remember. But then I finally chose Denmark mainly because there were two reasons. Firstly, the education. At DTU, the study curriculum for my master's, industrial engineering and management, it's very flexible. So out of the 120 credits, which is the total number of credits you have to do to complete your master's, in DTU, it's only 30 credits, which is mandatory. Otherwise, for 90 credits, you have a huge variety of options to choose from. So
Okay.
during my master's, I did an exchange semester in Switzerland for around 4 or 5 months. I did a sort of a special innovation project in collaboration with Eindhoven University, which was a great learning experience. I did a industrial project with a company, and then I did a master thesis in collaboration with another company on a topic which I was interested in. So this was
Mm.
a very flexible study curriculum, which helped you to gain hands-on experience by trying out things which you want to do. And for me, I learn more when I try out things with hands-on experience. I'm not a text centric person, so for me it really worked great on the academic part. The second point why I came to Denmark was the culture and the language. So in Scandinavia in general, what we have seen is that English is not a very big barrier. In Denmark, approximately 85% people speak English as uh, including their native language. So there's a huge chunk of people with whom it is very easy to communicate. So language was something which I wanted to first try out the country and then decide if I want to learn the language or not. So Denmark was a very good place for me. And other than that, the work-life balance and the people are more open to for expats. So this was the cultural thing which attracted me towards Denmark. So yeah.
That was a great summary. So you chose Denmark, and you also mentioned about that the credits are flexible, which means that you can go to a couple of semesters as specializations in another university in another country,
Yes.
and so which means that you have traveled in the entire program. You have traveled to other countries like Switzerland and also Netherlands, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
and then finally you have to come back and finish the whole program. That is what is it? What it is?
Yes. True.
Yeah.
True.
So in that time period, how much time does it take? 2 years, 2.5 years? What was the total duration?
Yes. So that is another very good thing about DTU, like
Mm.
in general in Denmark,
Mm.
that you can choose how long you want to study
Okay.
finish your masters. So if people are good, they are ambitious, they can finish it in two years as well. But
Mm.
they if they want to take are bit more slower. They want to they work part time as well in companies in parallel to
mm,
their studies as well, and they want
mm,
to take things slow. They have the option to do it in 2.5 years as well. Like many of my friends finish
mm,
their masters in 5 semesters, and they don't
mm,
have to pay anything extra.
Okay,
So
that's
yes,
interesting.
in my case, I was the ambitious kind of guy. I did it in 2 years.
Yeah.
But yes, it's totally possible to do it in 2.5 years. Take your time, absorb what you are studying,
Mm,
try out different things. Maybe also have some trips planned in between your studies so you have more time to relax. So that's you
mm,
study at your own pace. That is
mm.
the good thing.
Masters in Europe, masters in Denmark, and then your bachelor's in India, I suppose. What is the one big difference, if I have to ask you, that separates education system in Europe compared to the education system in India? Anything that separates completely, like a
Hmm.
difference?
Yes, there are a couple of differences,
Mm,
but I won't say which is better or which is bad. Both have their own pros and cons.
mm,
So personally, from my experience, starting in India teaches you how to work independently on things, how to deep dive into things. And starting in Denmark has taught me how to work in teams, how to work with people from different study lines, from different nationalities.
mm,
So teamwork is also important. Working in like when you're working a full-time employee, you need both of these skills, because working in teams give you diverse thoughts, they give you diverse perspectives on things. But also when you need to deep dive into certain topics, you need to know how to sit alone for 3 or 4 hours, research, study, and you go all in and go deep dive into the problem to figure it out. So working in India and studying in India and
mm,
studying in Denmark, if you combine both of them, you have an employee which is, I think, very much adaptable into different working environments.
mm.
That's at least that has helped
Yeah.
me to be. Yeah.
And you mentioned about language. English is commonly spoken in Denmark.
Hmm.
At least in the universities, they offer English-based programs, and a lot of Asians travel to study in DTU, which is also the popular university of choice in Denmark. What stands apart from DTU versus the rest of universities in Europe that made you decide that I wanted to go to Denmark than Switzerland or Germany, for example? Because these three countries have their own language. Of course, Switzerland, they speak German, Germany, German, Danish, Denmark. But what what was the driving factor to actually choose the smallest country out of all these three, which is also not the populace for the majority of the Indians, if I have to point out. But your perspective on that.
Yeah. So I think it's similar to what I mentioned earlier as well, that it is a flexible. So in DTU in Denmark, the education system is centered around the student.
Mm,
So the education system wants the students to learn, they want their well-being, and they want them to make the best out of it. But when we compare this to, let's say, I did an exchange semester in Switzerland. It's a
mm,
very good university called EPFL. I
mm,
think some people might have heard about it.
mm,
I did my exchange semester for around six, yeah, like 4 or 5 months, and
mm,
the study curriculum there, it is very demanding. It is very demanding. And like in Denmark, in DTU, you have this flat hierarchy system. You
mm,
can always approach your professors
mm,
for projects, and they you can always approach them for a cup of coffee, or just walk into their offices. It's
mm,
very open. So it is a place where you can actually feel that you are also contributing somehow to the education system by giving feedbacks on the
mm,
way things are taught.
mm,
Compared to Switzerland, I could feel that there was some sort of a distance between professor and the
mm,
student. You like I you could say them by their first name. That was a liberty, but you could not question them on their
mm,
methods. You could not argue with them because they had the control over everything at the end of the day.
mm.
So there was this a sort of subtle hierarchy in the education system. So
mm,
that is one thing which I really appreciate on in DTU.
mm,
Also, the so this is a not a very common thing, but it is possible in DTU. In DTU, at least when I was a student last year, they
mm.
had this flexibility that you don't have to stick to 120 credits. You can extend them by 124.5.
Okay.
Like you have to do anywhere between 120 to 124.5. Now, this seems to be a very irrelevant thing. But when I was doing my exchange semester, I had the flexibility of increasing or reducing my courses. So I could take my courses anywhere from 25 to 34 ECTS, total number of credits. On the contrary, my friend, let's say from Sweden, who came in Switzerland for his exchange semester, he had to precisely match the 30 credit which was asked by his university. And these course to credit conversions differ from course to course. In his university, he only had course of 5 and 7.5. So it is
Mm,
very easy to add them up to 120 ECTS. But in Switzerland, where he was doing his exchange semester, there were courses of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ECTS. It was very difficult for him to find the best match to
mm,
actually fulfill the exact 30 ECTS requirement by his university. Whereas,
mm,
whereas I did 24, 23, 28, or 31. I had this liberty because I could surpass 120. If I had 118 credit, I want to take a 4 ECTS course, I could end up with 122, which is okay with TTU,
mm.
but not in his case. He had
Okay.
to meet that exact 120 ECTS.
Mm,
So this flexibility is something which is unique to you, DTU, I think, in Europe.
okay. Cool. I
Yes.
think that is also like an extended explanation of credits and its advantages that Denmark has. Let's jump into the
Mm,
next segment, which is about eligibility to apply for these universities. I've heard stories that it
mm,
is easy to get into a German university if you learn the language, you get scholarships. How does it work in Denmark? Does scholarship work? What are the criteria to get a scholarship, if there is any, if someone is coming from a non-European country, for example?
yes. So, from my experience, at least in DTU context, the
Mm,
scholarship is not a very common phenomenon. Let's say
mm,
the non-European students like me, we need to pay the fees.
mm,
There are scholarships. Like I know my one of my friends from India who had studied on a full scholarship. Like he did not had to pay any fees. And by the way, the fees at DTU is approximately 30,000 euros, 35,000. I don't know if they have changed it this year, but it was
mm.
30,000 euros
As of
last year. So you
2023.
get a
Yeah.
scholarship.
Mm,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly, 2023. So, but that scholarships are based upon the department wise, and they usually give scholarships in the department which have a future for sustainability or innovation. And the
Mm,
scholarship is usually one per department.
mm,
So it is very competitive. It
mm.
is it is quite let's say yeah, you have to be best of best if you
Yeah.
want to get the scholarship. So it's a bit
It's like a
difficult.
lottery, and then only once per department is like not the attractive choice for a lot of
Yes,
Indians or non-Europeans. Yeah. So
yes.
you said 30,000 euros for the whole program, master's program, or
Mm,
is it
mm.
based on term? So the whole curriculum fee is 30,000
Yes,
euros.
so yeah, it's usually 4 terms. So you divide it by
Mm,
four, you get 7.7500 euros per
mm,
semester fees.
okay, yeah, and that is
Yeah.
just the tuition plus academia fees. But then there's also living cost, and then that is separate, right?
Yes.
That's the based on lifestyle and the choice that the student has to afford. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, true.
Yes.
Wow,
True. True.
that's a lot of information. That is great. So now that you have studied, you did some exchange programs outside Denmark, and you also have a fair enough understanding of how things work compared to the other universities. If you have to recommend one thing that, let's say, for someone who is traveling from India, who's watching this podcast right now, what would that be? What sort of advice would you recommend someone who's traveling outside Europe to study in DTU or Danish university, an
Mm.
example?
specifically from India, right?
Yeah, it would be India. That's easier because it's
Yes.
just non-Europeans, but yeah, Indians, yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I think the biggest advice which I would go give to them is to be open to change.
Mm,
The more open you would be to change, the more you will learn, and the
mm,
easier will be the process for you of transitioning from a Indian culture to a Danish culture.
mm,
So that would be my advice. Be open to change.
mm. And when you mean by culture, what sort of expectation does it based on communication or the lifestyle, or is it a cultural thing? What is the thing that you say is going to be that they have to adapt to, or all of these three,
It's all of these three
all the other above?
because in India, like how we talk with friends, how we connect with the families is very different how you would do in a setup as in Denmark.
Mm,
So you need to be open to change and just observe things and
mm.
yeah, adapt to them.
Yeah. When you moved from India, did you manage to find accommodation? Did you manage to find setups established before coming to Denmark, or how did it work? What was the challenge that you had when you moved from India?
Accommodation at least was not a challenge. So this is not many people know this, but this is a sort of a rule in Denmark that the students who come to study in Denmark, they should not have uh, accommodation problems at all. Like this is
Mm,
the priority. This is a priority of the government.
mm,
So at least in DTU,
mm.
when I arrived, so DTU has a collaboration with a housing
We,
association.
we will roll. It's fine. You can roll and you can explain again from scrap. I'll just cut it. Take water. Take some water. It's fine. I have the same feeling when I have a non-stop conversation. I sometimes have to inhale and exhale, and I know the feeling, but so, take your time.
So when I came to Denmark, accommodation was not a problem for me
Mm,
because DTU has a collaboration with the housing association,
mm.
which is an independent body called
Okay,
BDTU. Now I
okay,
know the name sounds very similar to DTU, but it's an independent body. It's called
okay.
Fondant DTU,
Mm,
and they have housings in and around the university campus.
mm,
So approx like they have how they provide housing for all of the master's student who come
mm,
for studying at DTU.
mm,
It's and so like you have to accept the offer once they offer you like couple of months before they give you a form which you have to fill, and
mm,
you have to fill in that your priority and choices, which rooms type of room you want.
mm,
And in this process, it is very easy for a student like me who is coming from Denmark,
mm.
who don't know anything about the job, about the housing market in
Yeah,
Denmark. It's very easy for me to just trust them, and
yeah, yeah.
they would give you the housing opportunity. So this is a
Mm,
very good. It makes your life very easy to transition from a culture like India. At
yeah,
least you don't have to worry about the housing because housing
yeah.
is a big worry. And once you
Mm,
settle here, you can take your time, settle up, and then you can search for other options for housing as well. So you
mm,
can make new couple of more friends. You decided to take apartment, just go for it. But the
mm,
first step, stepping into Denmark, you are not you
mm,
homeless. You have a
mm.
place to stay, which is a
That is
very good
important.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could
Yes.
imagine. I mean, even in India, I've seen a lot of my friends travel to rest of India, and the first challenge that they face is finding an accommodation. And
Yes.
so now that you have explained about accommodation, what was the number one challenge that you faced? If not accommodation, what else was it? Did you find any challenges moving from India to Denmark, and things that you want to share? You can. That will be the last segment of the podcast, anyways.
I think the the biggest challenge, which took me approximately 5 or 6 months, that is like one semester to adjust to life in TTU, was like managing my studies along with
Okay.
my household chores.
Okay.
In India, we are we are not used to do our things ourselves. We are not used to cooking,
Yeah,
cleaning the dishes, clean
yeah,
your apartment in the weekends, and then you have to study as well, and you have to go out with friends to socialize as well.
yeah.
There was a lot of things to manage at once,
Mm,
which took me some time to prioritize when to do
mm,
what is the most optimized way to manage your weekly schedules.
yeah.
So it took me some time, but like now what I do usually is
Mm,
I prep food for the whole week. So
okay.
on, let's say on Sunday, I cook a huge amount of, let's say, dal
Mm,
and a huge amount of sabzi
okay.
for me for approximately, which lasts for 4 or 5 days. So I don't have to cook in the middle of the week, and I can only focus on just studying and eating and
Mm,
sleeping and studying and eating and sleeping.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
That's also
this
smart.
has helped me to, yeah, simplify my life at least a bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you also in the process learn how to prioritize, learn cooking, and then still be able
Yes,
to
yes, yes,
study in a span of 2.5 years, plus traveling to another
yes.
country. And how many friends did you make in the process? Because you would have met a lot of people from a lot of countries. How many countries or how many nationalities have you worked or studied together with? Any rough
Uh,
numbers?
more than 10 or 15, I would say.
Yeah.
Approximately, I have, yeah, friends from most of the bigger countries, a few, because like starting at in an international environment
Mm,
gives you the liberty to interact with people from different backgrounds, right? We have
yeah.
project works approximately in every course at DTU.
Mm,
So if
mm,
you study, like, let's say, even 12 courses, you
mm,
have 12 project teams. You
mm,
have like 60 people, or like each team is like
mm,
4 or 5 people. So you have 50 people which you will definitely interact with during your study
mm,
time, and they span from backgrounds like Germany,
mm,
Poland, Spain, and then you have Sweden, then
mm,
Denmark itself, and then you have from Croatia, Italy,
mm,
just name, yes, go and so on and so forth. So this is a really good experience, and
mm,
you make good friends with them. So when it's the next time when you are traveling to Italy, you have friends who can host you on the trip. You
yeah.
have friends in Barcelona who can host you. So this network helps you to, learn a lot about different cultures beyond Denmark as well.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a great learning experience.
Yeah, you become more international. You also get to know different walks of people, and then you also start to
Yes.
understand how culture works. How do you adapt to these cultures? Not just living in
So
Denmark as an Indian, but
yes, and
also
you
like,
you also learn in this process. You also learn how other cultures see India,
yeah,
what is
exactly.
their perception of Indian culture, and
Yeah,
then you become this unofficial ambassador of India. You have to take on
yeah,
their questions. You have to clarify some doubts if they have
yeah,
any,
yeah,
or you have to tell them more about the culture. You become this unofficial ambassador of India. So it's a
yeah,
great
yeah,
experience.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that was amazing from you, Parth. We covered a lot of segments. It was a pleasure having you
Yeah.
on the podcast.
Yes.
I am
Likewise.
particularly happy because it's also like a journey that I've never taken being a student in Denmark. And I always wanted to feature a student in my podcast. And thank you for being on the show. Yeah, I will.
Yes, it was a great time talking with you.
Yeah, pleasure.